Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is Tuesday, February 5th, 2026, and I need to get you up to speed immediately on what is developing across the Atlantic and heading directly for the United Kingdom over the next 48 to 72 hours. The Met Office has issued multiple yellow warnings for wind and rain that will affect substantial portions of England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, beginning Wednesday evening and extending through Friday morning. And I'm talking about a system that is currently intensifying west of Ireland as we speak, deepening rapidly as it approaches our shores with the potential to bring wind gusts reaching 60 miles per hour in exposed coastal locations and widespread gusts of 45 to 50 miles per hour inland across a huge swathe of the country. This comes on the heels of what has already been an exceptionally wet and windy winter season for the UK. We've seen repeated low-pressure systems tracking across the Atlantic. We've dealt with flooding concerns across multiple regions, and here we are, again facing another vigorous area of low pressure that meteorologists are tracking very carefully because of its intensity, its track, and the timing of its arrival during the midweek period when we've got commuter traffic, schools in session, and all the normal operations of daily life that can be significantly disrupted by severe weather. Let me break down exactly what we're looking at here in terms of the meteorological setup. The low-pressure system that's going to affect us is currently positioned approximately 500 miles west of the Irish coast as of this morning. And satellite imagery shows a well-defined circulation with a central pressure that has already dropped to around 982 millibars and continues to deepen as it encounters favourable atmospheric conditions for intensification. We're talking about strong jet stream dynamics aloft, warm ocean temperatures relative to the air mass above, and a very tight pressure gradient developing between this low and high pressure to our east, which is exactly the recipe for generating powerful winds. The track of the system is crucial. Current model guidance from both the GFS and the ECMWF shows the low centre passing to the north of Scotland during Thursday, which means the strongest winds will be experienced across Northern Ireland, Northern England, and Scotland. But because this is a large and powerful system with an extensive wind field, we're going to see significant impacts across virtually all of the UK, with very few areas escaping the effects entirely. Now let's talk timing, because that's absolutely critical for planning purposes. The leading edge of this system, the initial bands of rain and the first increase in wind speed, will arrive across Northern Ireland and Western Scotland Wednesday evening, probably around 6 to 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And then through the overnight hours Wednesday into Thursday morning, the system intensifies and spreads rapidly eastward, meaning by Thursday morning's rush hour we're looking at very difficult conditions across Northern Ireland, much of Scotland, northwest England including Cumbria and Lancashire, and western Wales. The peak intensity period, when we see the highest wind speeds and the heaviest rainfall rates, is expected Thursday during daylight hours, roughly from 6 a.m. through 6 p.m, with the exact timing of maximum winds varying by a few hours depending on your specific location, but with that Thursday midday period looking particularly volatile across northern and western areas. By Thursday evening, the centre of the low will be positioned over northern Scotland, or just to the north in the North Sea, and we'll see conditions beginning to improve from the west. Though it's a gradual improvement, meaning Friday morning we'll still see blustery conditions, with showers especially across eastern areas, before high pressure finally builds in from the Atlantic during the weekend. The wind forecast is what's grabbing the most attention from meteorologists and emergency planners, and for good reason. We're looking at sustained wind speeds of 35 to 45 miles per hour across exposed western and northern coasts during Thursday, with gusts frequently reaching 50 to 60 miles per hour in the most exposed locations. And I'm talking specifically about Western Scotland, including the Western Isles, coastal areas of Northern Ireland, particularly along the Antrim coast, northwest England, especially around Cumbria, Western Wales, including Pembrokeshire and Gwynedd, and exposed coasts of southwest England, including Cornwall and Devon. Inland areas are not getting off lightly, even well inland, across northern England, the Midlands and central Scotland. We're expecting sustained winds of 25 to 35 miles per hour, with gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour, which is more than sufficient to cause travel disruption, to bring down tree branches, especially given how saturated the ground is from recent rainfall, and to create hazardous driving conditions, particularly for high-sided vehicles. The Met Office yellow wind warning specifically mentions the potential for some damage to buildings, including tiles blown from roofs, the likelihood of power interruptions affecting some homes and businesses, and the probability of delays to road, rail, air, and ferry transport. The rainfall component of this system is equally concerning, particularly for areas that have already dealt with flooding issues in recent weeks, and where river levels remain elevated, and ground saturation is near maximum. The heaviest rain is expected across Western Scotland, where we could see 40 to 60 millimetres, that's about 1.5 to 2.5 inches, of rain falling in a 24-hour period from Wednesday evening through Thursday evening, with the potential for locally higher amounts exceeding 75 millimetres in mountainous areas where orographic enhancement increases precipitation rates. Northwest England, including Cumbria and Lancashire, is also looking at significant rainfall totals of 30 to 50 millimetres during the same timeframe, and Western Wales could see similar amounts of 25 to 40 millimetres fairly widely. Under normal circumstances, those rainfall totals wouldn't necessarily trigger major flood concerns. But we're not operating under normal circumstances. River catchments across these regions are already responding quickly to rainfall because the ground is saturated, drainage systems are working at capacity, and we've seen repeated flooding events that have left some flood defences compromised or weakened. The Environment Agency has already issued multiple flood warnings and flood alerts across northern and western England, and I expect those numbers to increase as this system moves through. Let me walk you through the regional breakdown so you understand exactly what to expect based on where you're located. If you're in Northern Ireland, your worst conditions arrive Wednesday evening and persist through Thursday morning with wind gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour along exposed coasts and 40 to 50 miles per hour inland. OGS along with 20 to 35 millimetres of rain fairly widely. You're looking at very difficult driving conditions, probable power outages in some areas, and the strong possibility of ferry cancellations to Scotland and travel disruptions on the roads. Scotland faces the most intense conditions, particularly western and northern areas. The Western Isles, Highland Coast, Argyll, and coastal areas of Dumfries and Galloway are looking at sustained winds of 40 to 50 miles per hour with gusts of 55 to 65 miles per hour during Thursday, along with the heaviest rainfall totals of 50 to 75 millimetres in Western Mountains. And even central Scotland, including Glasgow and Edinburgh, will see gusts of 45 to 55 miles per hour during Thursday, with significant travel disruption expected on major routes including the M8, M74 and A9. Northern England, including Cumbria, Lancashire, Yorkshire and up into Northumberland, is in for a rough Thursday with wind gusts of 45 to 55 miles per hour fairly widely, heavy rain totals of 30 to 50 millimetres, especially in Cumbria and Lancashire, and significant flood risk in already vulnerable areas. Major routes, including the M6, M62, and A1, could see hazardous conditions and possible closures. The Midlands will experience the effects Thursday morning through afternoon, with wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour and periods of heavy rain totalling 15 to 25 millimetres. Wales, particularly western counties, faces wind gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour along the coast and 40 to 50 miles per hour inland during Thursday, along with 25 to 40 millimetres of rain. Southwest England, including Cornwall and Devon, will see wind gusts of 45 to 55 miles per hour during Thursday, with 20 to 30 millimetres of rain. Even southeastern England and East Anglia aren't escaping entirely. You're still looking at wind gusts of 35 to 45 miles per hour during Thursday afternoon and evening with 10 to 20 millimetres of rain. The practical implications are extensive and affect virtually every aspect of daily operations, so let me be very specific about what you should expect and how you should prepare. For transportation, Thursday is going to be a very challenging day. If you have flexibility in your schedule, seriously consider working from home if that's an option, because travel is going to be difficult, potentially dangerous, and almost certainly delayed. If you must travel by road, allow significantly extra time. Reduce your speed, especially in high winds, and be extremely cautious around high-sided vehicles, which will be particularly vulnerable to crosswinds. Bridges and elevated sections of motorway will be especially hazardous, and some bridges, including the Forth Road Bridge, Severn Crossing and Erskine Bridge, may face speed restrictions or even temporary closures if wind speeds exceed safety thresholds. Rail services will almost certainly experience delays and cancellations, particularly on routes in Scotland, Northern England and Wales, where fallen trees and debris on the line are likely. Air travel will see disruption, particularly at airports in western and northern areas including Glasgow, Edinburgh, Manchester, Liverpool and Belfast, where crosswinds will create challenges. Ferry services to Northern Ireland, the Scottish Islands, and routes across the Irish Sea will face significant disruption, with cancellations highly likely during the peak of the storm. For homeowners and property managers, now is the time to take preventative action before this system arrives, Wednesday evening. Secure any loose outdoor items, including garden furniture, trampolines, bins, and anything else that could become a projectile in high winds. Check your gutters and drains to ensure they're clear of debris and can handle heavy rainfall. Blocked drainage is one of the main causes of localised flooding and water damage to properties. If you live in a flood-prone area, have your emergency supplies ready, including flashlights, battery-powered radio, drinking water, and essential medications. If you lose power, don't use camping stoves or generators indoors due to carbon monoxide risk. Also, report your power outage to your electricity provider and check on vulnerable neighbours who may need assistance. I want to put this system into context, because I know we've dealt with multiple storms this winter, and there's an element of weather fatigue setting in. But this is a significant system that meteorologists are taking seriously. The wind speeds we're forecasting, 55 to 65 miles per hour gusts in exposed areas, are comparable to what we saw during Storm Isha in January, when we had widespread power outages, significant travel disruption, and unfortunately some structural damage to buildings. The rainfall totals of 50 to 75 millimetres in western Scotland and 30 to 50 millimetres in northwest England are substantial. And when you're adding that to already saturated ground and elevated river levels, you have the ingredients for renewed flooding in areas that may have just recovered from previous events. Looking beyond this immediate system into the extended forecast, the pattern isn't changing dramatically in the immediate term. We're remaining in an unsettled westerly flow, with the Atlantic remaining active and further areas of low pressure likely to affect the UK through the remainder of February. None of the systems currently showing up in the medium-range models for next week appear to be as intense as what we're dealing with Thursday, but we're looking at a continuation of changeable conditions with further wind and rain at times. The European model is showing some signs of high pressure trying to build more substantially from the Atlantic toward the middle of next week, which, if it materialises, could bring us a brief window of calmer weather, but confidence in that pattern change is still relatively low at this range. I want to emphasise the safety priorities here because ultimately that's what matters most. If conditions deteriorate to the point where travel becomes dangerous, do not attempt to complete your journey. Find a safe place to wait out the worst of the conditions, and remember that no appointment or commitment is worth risking your life in severe weather. If you encounter flooding, never attempt to drive or walk through floodwater. It takes just 30 centimetres of fast-flowing water to move a car. The depth is often deceptive, and there may be unseen hazards beneath the surface. Stay informed throughout this event. The Met Office provides regular updates through their website and app. Local radio stations provide location-specific information during severe weather, and I'll be providing updates here on the channel as the system develops and moves through. I'll be monitoring this system very closely over the next 48 hours, and will provide updates as the forecast evolves, because one of the challenging aspects of forecasting these rapidly developing Atlantic low-pressure systems is that there can be adjustments to the track, the intensity, or the timing as we get closer to the event. Right now, the models are in reasonably good agreement on the overall scenario, a deep low tracking to the north of Scotland with widespread wind and rain impacts. But there's still some uncertainty about the exact central pressure at maturity and the precise track across Scotland. I'll be watching those model updates and will share any significant changes in the forecast here on the channel. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates as this system moves through. During significant weather events like this, staying informed with the latest information can genuinely make a difference to your safety and preparedness. Share this video with family and friends who might be affected, particularly if they're in the areas facing the most severe conditions across Northern Ireland, Scotland, Northern England, and Wales. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from and what conditions you're expecting in your area. Stay safe out there, everyone. Take this forecast seriously. Make your preparations before Wednesday evening when conditions begin to deteriorate. And remember that we will get through this system. By Friday evening, conditions will be improving, and by the weekend we should see some recovery with lighter winds and drier weather returning. Check on your neighbours, particularly elderly or vulnerable people who might need assistance. And remember that community resilience is one of our greatest assets during severe weather events. I'll be back with updates as this develops, so keep checking the channel, stay weather aware, and take care of yourselves and each other.